Deconstruction has made me a cynical and skeptical son of a bitch. Sorry for the interruption there, folks. But earlier today, Candy was on the proverbial cesspool of MAGA degeneracy known as Facebook. And a woman we both know and like and just have good company with when we talk reposted this gentleman's post. I'm going to put it up here and let you read it at your leisure. So Candy sent me this and asked me what my thoughts were on it. And after reading it, immediately I thought this loses a lot of credibility because he's conflict in what he's trying to prove as his point here. When he's trying to say that Ukraine wants to be part of NATO, so they have that alliance so that these other countries would come in and help defend, and that would deter Putin from continuing to push in and continue this conflict. But then at the end, talking about if America made this deal, that we would get all these mining resources, and that if Putin decided to come in, the American lives would be at stake, and we'd be forced to have to come in, and that would distract him from coming in here. So to have this idea of that conflict would be bad if we were in an allied alliance, but it's all right if we're in here pillaging and stealing all these minerals and resources from Ukraine, then conflict would be all right then. It's either all right or it's not all right. Neither way, depending if you're allied or if you're people in there. You can't have both ways. And it just reminds me of the religious mindset of what's good for me isn't always good for you, and I'm going to read and interpret everything to benefit my ideas. And that really just kind of struck me as this is a very poor argument to put out on this. But then going on and sitting here saying how great of a negotiator and everything like this is, and just thinking he's a horrible negotiator, maybe the worst negotiator we've ever had a president, to go in before all the talks and lay out all his cards. You know, it'd be like playing Texas Hold'em and getting your cards and putting them face down and then trying to bluff your way through the game.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Not a very good negotiating tactic to let everyone know what your points are coming in. You have nothing. You have no more cards to hold. You laid them all out. But I got home later this afternoon, and Candy was asking me about it again. She's like, well, here's another post, because she was looking this gentleman up. And he was talking about brain function and a study done by the government on brain function between Republicans and Democrats. And his point was that in this study, that the brain function of Republicans went through the logic and reason part of the brain first. When they were doing scans of the brain, that lit up. And in Democrats, it was the emotional part, and then the logic and reason fired in. And that's why we can't debate, because we're dealing with logic and reason, and they're dealing with emotions. Even though, as she's reading this to me, it just didn't strike me right. It's like, well, no, that doesn't make sense, because I lean a little left, and I go straight logic and reason a lot of times with stuff presented to me. So it didn't add up there. It wasn't true. I go, and you're trying to compare, make this black and white, 100% either way. I said, that doesn't work. It's not, there's something not right there. But as we continued on and she's reading through it and saw some comments, she found the actual study. And the actual study was 180 degrees different in how it was presented and how it came out. And that it was more of the Democrats who were more logical and reasoning in their functionality and how they actually rated data. So, what is my whole point in this? My whole point is that through deconstruction, I've learned some good tactics, a couple of which are skepticism and cynicism, to not take everything that's fed to me and given to me and believe it on just concept. Because another thing I learned was confirmation bias and biases I have. If you guys were to ask me about my kids and what my opinions of my kids were, I'm going to be extremely biased and have a glowing review on what they are. You may come in and meet my children and not have such high praise or glory for them with your interactions. But I have to understand that I have a vested interest in them, and that is my bias in this whole situation. And that's what he's not taking into his arguments, is realizing the biases that he has. Just like any religious faith and anything else that we learn through deconstruction is going through this filter of this religious bias or political bias that's going to affect how we reason and rationalize through things. You then pollute your idea of reason and rationality. You have cognitive dissonance that associates in your brain that doesn't allow you to think clearly and thoroughly through any object that may come and be presented to you. You're going to filter it through your biases that are in there. Learning that I have these biases helps me excuse myself from things that I might have extreme biases and may be passionate about, and stop talking about them from an authoritative position, because I understand I have biases there and it's going to be reflected in my opinions and how I send them out. All these lessons being learned from deconstruction, I'm very thankful for, because it's helped me be a more rounded individual. It's helped me actually look at posts like this and then look at contradictory and dissenting views and lining them up and figuring them out of where the truth lies in this, seeing the faults pointed out on one side and the faults pointed out on the other side, because both sides on either extreme are going to be extremely biased. We got to find the truth somewhere in the middle. Deconstruction was a tool that helped me figure this out. When I started deconstructing my faith and finding out the flaws in it, the contradictions in it, the just all the things that I was being lied to, and the truths that were out there that I now started listening to and seeing it and applying them in there and seeing what held and what didn't, to see how weak and what a house of cards the faith was. Just like this political ideology that we have dealing with here now. So when these people that have orange changed lips around and are busy just drinking in all the orange Fanta juice that's going around all day, I really don't hold high regard for them, because I understand they have extreme bias, and that plays into my perception of them because I know where they're coming from. I'll listen to what they have to say, but I'm, especially when I hear it with that much bias, going to look at other ideas and contradictory opinions to it to see where the truth may lie. My only thing here is that as we're going through all this, I just hope one thing to be true. As the world sees this going on, and as we see how everyone's reacting to these situations going on in our country, is that the world has some compassion for all us individuals standing up and speaking out against what's going on in our country, so that when inevitably the hangman comes and starts to delve out his rightful justice upon everything in America, they have some mercy and grace for the people that stood up for him. Because we need to keep pointing this out and educating people on what's going on and seeing and pointing out the biases that they have, that they're looking through things through orange colored glasses, and that that's not a good way to go through life, because you're polluting your logic and reason that you're so proud of. Your logic and reason is crap if it's that polluted.